Did you know that in the United States, 1 out of every 310 people is a Seventh-day Adventist? Well, some might think that that's not so bad. How does that compare to other countries? In Brazil, 1 out of every 150 people belong to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And in the Philippines, that ratio is 1 out of every 100. Clearly, right here on our own country, there is a vast mission field where everyone can be involved in sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. You don't have to hold an evangelistic series or preach a single sermon or even knock on any doors. For slightly more than the cost of a first-class postage stamp, you can share the gospel with your neighbor. Our story today begins in the cities of Piedmont and Gadsden, Alabama, with a very special mother and son team who felt the Lord's calling to spread the message of His soon return.
About 2.5 years ago, I had received a letter from the Project Steps to Christ in our mailbox. And usually when I get those, I set them aside and I think about them. This letter, it had some special attachment to it. I don't know. I kept dreaming as I held this letter about, oh, if only we could cover all of this area around us, because it was so needy. This area is so needy. And I knew what this could do in the lives of the people in this community, in these areas around us. I had tried working as a colporteur for 6 months or so. Byron and I would work together. He would come with me. And as we did the work, I could see that it wasn't something that we could continue to do. But I still had the desire to reach people with the printed word in some form or another, in some way or another. And this, as a project, Steps to Christ, mailing out these little missionaries, this was the answer. This solved our problem.
Byron faced obstacles to personally being involved in sharing the good news of Jesus with his neighbors. Yet God had a solution through Project Steps to Christ.
The thing that makes involving Byron so special is because of his inability to communicate properly. He can speak. It's difficult for people to understand him. And so it's very hard for him to go and talk with someone about anything. It's very difficult. So this is an answer of how Byron can get involved in doing something in a ministry way that he couldn't on his own.
But our story doesn't end there. Sheila and Byron were so excited that their enthusiasm soon spread. Deborah heard about what they had done, and she wanted to get involved.
I became interested in sponsoring the mailings on the Edge of Time by a friend, Sheila, that goes to the Piedmont Church. She and her son, Byron, were mailing out on the Edge of Time to the Attala area, and she shared with our Bible study group the responses that she had. It was a blessing to see Byron each week as he came in with more and more responses, and the enthusiasm he had for each card that he had, and you could tell that he had such a heart and such a love for each person that he sent out to. And that's what inspired my husband and I to send out to the Wellington area.
For the next 7 months, Deborah faithfully mailed out Steps to Christ to the Wellington area. Little did she know that God was going to reward her faithfulness.
Shortly after we did the mailing to Wellington, my husband and I received a check from where my uncle had been in a tragic accident a few years ago. We asked the Lord how best to use the money that we received, and we were impressed to start a mailing to the Gadsden area.
Because of her faithfulness to the Lord, Deborah was able to turn tragedy into opportunity. And as a result, over 50,000 homes in the Gadsden area received the book On the Edge of Time. Since the time of the mailing, Nearly 200 people have responded asking for more information, and it is clear that God has a plan for the Gadsden area. Meanwhile, God was working on the hearts of two men, Pastor Rick Blythe and Elder Mike Duman.
Apparently, the Holy Spirit was working for this move before we had ever even thought about it, because they had already stepped out and done this, and the seeds were already being planted. So it seems that God had a plan before we were ever ready to think about it.
We felt that the Lord was ready to do something to revitalize this church, and I think it was the Lord's leading.
This overwhelming urge came upon me. I said, look at this city, and I'm guessing, but maybe 100,000 people in this whole area. And I said, I'd love to see this city evangelized.
Under the leadership of Pastor Rick and Mike, new life began to sprout within the Gadsden congregation. Every Adventist ministry serving Gadsden was contacted to secure interest from the community. Evangelism events were held, inviting everyone on the interest list, plus others from the community, and church members were encouraged to get involved. In the year since Pastor Rick and Mike began the revitalization effort in the Gadsden community, church attendance has increased tenfold. There have been 4 baptisms and 4 more nearly ready. I recently had the opportunity to visit Gadsden, and what I saw was a church excited about their involvement in ministry.
Sponsoring a Steps to Christ mailing has made me feel more fulfilled in my spiritual life.
Byron's enthusiasm inspired me to get involved, and I hope that my enthusiasm will inspire you.
Project Steps to Christ really, it opens doors and helps a lay pastor like myself, a Bible worker, to see where the interests are and to be able to reach out to those interests.
Project Steps to Christ is a seed-sowing ministry. Sometimes it may take months or even years to yield a harvest. Yet God has called us to be faithful, and when we are, He has promised that the harvest will be plentiful. To learn more about Project Steps to Christ and how you can become a missionary right here in this country, call us at 1-800-728-6872 or visit us on the web at projectstc.org.